Welcome, everybody, to the Wildly Awakened Women interview series. This is really about me creating and co-creating a love letter to the woman who's on the cusp of her becoming her second bloom, your next chapter, your next evolution, and having really rich, real conversations with women who I know and believe embody that wildly awakened woman archetype. So I am so delighted and excited to have the wonderful Rebecca Hamilton here with us today. We are going to explore the theme of really the process of becoming, and when you decide to break the rules, when you decide to reclaim your power, what's involved in that process, the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly, certainly the challenging. Rebecca is really here to change the way that we live and work. She's a business growth expert. She's a long-time brand and marketing expert and strategist. She's also a best-selling author of Awakened Leaders, a book that we co-created a year ago now. And a new expression that she is claiming right now is also a tech founder of a brand new platform. So, Rebecca, thank you so much. I am so delighted to have you here.
A total delight to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. And we were joking when we were kind of prepping for this conversation that we've been having good conversations for a long time now, a number of years now. We've been friends, we've had a working relationship, co-creating things, client relationship. So yeah, I am so delighted to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Rebecca. Was there anything I missed in the intro? I mean, it's a highly impressive intro. You've got a massive, amazing career. What else can you share with us about, who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you for the introduction. It was a good summary, a good roundup, actually. What can I add to it? I mean, ultimately, I've always had the absolute joy. I've been really, really lucky. I've worked with such amazing people through my career, and I've always had the privilege and the joy of, when I was working in the corporate world, of working in what I would call memory making brands. So my job, my
Mm.
mission was always to give people a good time, and I sometimes
Yeah.
joke about it and go, God, I worked through all the vices because I worked in sport and entertainment and horse racing and all of that. And I was very, very lucky to work with great people and great brands and some really fantastic leaders, and it was a real privilege. So that was, that's been amazing. So I have had a really rich and fun, adventurous career, if you like. And I'm a very dedicated marketing person. So,
Mm.
I take our profession seriously because it's the part of business that connects
Mhm.
customers and the employees, the people in the business, and why we're here. It's the most human part of business. And that's why I love it so much. And that's why I got into it in the first place. At the end of the day, marketing is about connecting people for mutual benefit.
Yeah.
And that's why I got into it. I used to make adverts on my lunch break at school. My dad has a horrific, horrible VHS videotape somewhere stashed away with bad perm and my massive
Oh,
glasses.
I love it.
Um,
I love it. I need to get
so
my hands on those.
yeah, yeah, I'll see him I'm seeing him later. Actually, I'll ask him what it is. Um,
Great.
that's how I got into it professionally,
Amazing.
and that's evolved. That has
Yeah.
evolved into what I now do and who I am now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Amazing. And you mentioned your corporate career, so you're no longer employed in the corporate world, right? You're now dancing to the beat of your own drum, doing your own thing with different exciting projects and expressions that we talked about, fractional chief marketing officer, a brand expert, doing kind of development and consultancy work, and this tech platform that you're building. I would love for you to tell us a bit more about, you really did answer the call, what I describe as answer the call of your soul. You completely walked away from your life as you knew, you dismantled it to start over. For you, part of that leap was from corporate to entrepreneurship. What was the moment, if there was one, there might have been many, where you realized that you couldn't go on living, working the way that you were?
Mm. There have definitely been a number of moments,
Hmm.
but there was definitely and you and I have talked about this so much and we've laughed about it. There was definitely a what the fuck this shit moment
Yeah.
where I went, what on earth is going on? This is there's something seriously wrong about the way that the corporate world behaves and works.
Mhm.
And I had a very profound moment of reality, really. And there have been various moments when I've gone, whoa, what is that? What is this? But there was a particular moment where, yeah, I find myself on all fours on a boardroom floor, gasping for breath, wondering if, if I might be having a heart attack or something else, who knows? But it was a moment that your body goes, what is going on here? Like, what?
Enough is, well, enough
Enough,
is enough,
enough.
right? Enough is
Yeah,
enough. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And it's so fascinating, isn't it? Because I mean, I was there, not physically present, but I was in your life, and we were working together during that period. And I think that's what happens when you ignore the nudges.
Mm,
It gets to a stage where your body says, right, I'm really going to have to up the game here. I'm going to have to really make it clear to you that something needs to change, something needs to
yeah.
give. Does that resonate
Mhm.
with you too? Because that was what happened with me in my breakdown. It wasn't
Yeah.
all fours, but it was a moment where like my body was just like, no, no, every
Yeah.
warning bell that I have,
Yeah.
every siren is going off. So, do you sense that's what was happening? Like your body was almost communicating to you, look, it's time. You can't keep pretending anymore. You can't keep holding
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah, don't ignore what you already know, really. Yeah, definitely. It was my body saying, right, that's it.
Mm.
And what's funny about it when I look back on it, and at the time I was very aware of it, it only took me a few days to have the very, very clear and stark perspective, which is, right, that I'm done. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
Like that, this is no
yeah.
longer acceptable. And I think the problem is, we as leaders, business leaders, and I'm not going to say we as women, but it can often apply to women more than men.
Hmm.
But we as business leaders are in a machine which relies on cortisol, adrenaline,
Yeah,
working really, really hard physically, breaking ourselves, working ridiculous hours, not achieving balance. And there is only so long that anyone can do that.
yeah,
And then you throw, hormones into the mix and
exactly.
all the rest, all those other things
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
affect you.
perimenopause and just hormonal changes.
Mm.
Again,
Hmm.
particularly as women, men have their own menopause, which we're now beginning to learn about, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah.
but speaking about, I mean, our audience will primarily, not exclusively, but probably primarily be women for this conversation. And I think it is important to say that your body, as your body changes and evolves, so do you. You
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
and evolve. You just don't have the same engine, right?
Yeah,
You do in
totally.
your 20s and 30s as a woman. That was again, it was for me, it was like mid 30s. I was like, oh, really, things are beginning to shift and
Mm.
change now.
Mhm.
So yes, so it's
Absolutely.
really, really, and I think we need to acknowledge that more to take the
Yeah.
shame out of it, right?
We absolutely
People
do.
think we think there's something wrong with us. It's like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way
Yeah,
you're wired. It's your biology.
because we hold it as well. So, if I think about my journey, a lot of that stuff I was holding on my own. I was the only female on an executive leadership team. I had a period where, because of perimenopausal effects I was bleeding heavily for it was like July, August, September, October. And well, to having to hold some of the pressures and challenges that we have going through those energy cycles
Yeah,
on your own, because
yeah,
the workplace doesn't actually really accommodate it. There's so much
yeah.
shame around it. The people in that workplace don't know how to talk about it, or it's easier not to.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, I was just giving that example about having sort of heavy bleeding for 5 months and nobody really knowing what to do with that information. It was, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
there's a lot that we hold, I think,
A
in.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And when you so in your origin story, like we're in that place where it's like your oh shit moment where it's like, I can't do this anymore. What was the first rule that you broke or belief that you questioned as part of that process of, oh, that's not the way I want to do it. This doesn't fit. What was that first belief that you questioned or rule that you broke?
I had a very clear realization that it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need
Hmm.
to be like this. I had a very absolute stark clarity, which is there is something fundamentally broken about
Hmm.
the corporate world,
Hmm.
about the way that business operates, about the way that a lot of business is done, and all of the things that means, in terms of how it's operated, how people interact.
Hmm.
there are layers
And
to that
and the
conversation.
masking, right? It's just there's so much masking that goes on, isn't
By
there?
everyone.
Yeah.
By
And
everyone.
I'm really sad at how much authenticity has become a buzzword that almost has kind of lost some of its power and potency. But so many people are acting in a way that they believe is expected of them rather
Mhm.
than really being true to their voice, their power, their potential, which I think is incredibly limiting actually for a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations. Because when people really do encourage more freedom of expression, you have higher employee engagement rates, you have better business results. When boards are more gender balanced, when there's more flexible working in place, you get the best out of people. So
Mhm.
I think we're beginning to see, but we must say not every organization is like this,
No, not at
but
all.
we're really beginning to see that shift happen now. Let's come back to you and your journey. Let's kind of bring the spotlight back to you. What are some of the things that you've had to unlearn in this process? Because we wanted to talk about that process of becoming, didn't we? Like the method and the magic. What are some of the things you've really had to support yourself to unlearn in that process?
Goodness, there's so much in there, isn't there, in terms of
Hmm.
unlearning from an entire life's work, an entire life,
Hmm.
an entire existence of unlearning, I suppose, because there's a lot of unlearning around the way that work operates, the way that the corporate world operates, but there's actually just a lot from society and about how we
Yes.
are conditioned to think and behave and all of those things. And in my however many years, not that far off 50 to be fair, but in all my years on earth, I will have been conditioned to think a certain way, act a certain way, default to blaming myself or wondering what I'm doing wrong as opposed to anything else. There's lots of conditioning and what's the word? Compliance, I suppose, in the way that we just live our lives. And there have been so many moments where I've realized that there needs to be I have wanted to relearn or reclaim how I live my life. And
Yes.
those are personal and professional. And at the end of the day, I don't believe that you can separate the two things. And that our journeys are so rich and they have such texture to them. There are so many moments where we have an opportunity to make a different choice. And they can be tiny moments or they can be huge milestones in your life. But every single second of every day, we have a chance and a choice to make for ourselves. And that for me has probably been the biggest learning, if you like. I'm not sure if it's an unlearning, but the biggest, most empowering thing that I have done to change my own life is being very, very conscious of every choice I make in a day has a consequence, and making that choice from a place of love ultimately makes the biggest difference in my life.
Mm. Hallelujah to that, sister. And of course, we wrote a book about that, right, last year, Awaken Leaders, How to Become the Leader the World Needs Now, because we are not alone. And I think sometimes you feel so alone and isolated when you're looking around at the world that you have built and you've created and thinking, shit, this isn't it.
Mhm.
I really thought it was. And there's so much fear,
Mm,
isn't
mhm,
there, that is activated through that. And of course, love is always the answer, right? Love is always the answer, but fear is so prevalent. And of course, you're a marketer as well, right? So you get that the way that fear has been used traditionally, again, we're talking about old school, more traditional forms, that's
mhm.
also been much more prevalent than love. So I think there's some interesting parallels there. How have you navigated that fear and that pushback as you claim that love, as you claim that, that authenticity and that truth for you? How have you navigated some of the fears and some of that kind of, overcoming some of those challenges that inevitably come up when you decide to ditch the status quo and do it
Mhm.
your way, which is exactly what you've done, isn't it?
Absolutely. Navigating the fears. Fears are always going to be there. We're always going to have them. They will always pop up. That's just natural. But the more and more that we can choose thoughts in our mind that are channeled from a place of love and therefore give us a better energy when the thought is in our brain and in our body. Because if you have thoughts which give you a bad vibe or give you a bad energy, that's going to create
Well, that's
a
what
not
your
great
creation
situation.
are going to
Yeah,
be infused with. And
exactly.
flip, we
So
can flip that too, right? That your creations, when they're infused with love and passion and connectivity, that's what you're putting out into the world.
exactly. So being very, very conscious of creating a good energy in your body and in your thinking process is probably the most important thing for me. And I
Mhm.
think also choosing courage over fear is always going to be a better choice, right?
Yeah,
It might be a bit scary, but it's like, oh, I'm
yeah,
so scared and terrified. But no, actually, who cares? It's an
yeah,
adventure. Let's go for it. Let's be
yeah.
courageous. There's something so empowering and energizing about choosing to be courageous.
Yes.
It's really like it's got a huge
Yeah,
momentum in
yeah.
it,
And
which
that's
is
what research
powerful.
tells us. Research tells us that. So, high performance research and methodology, courage is something you generate, and you
Hmm.
generate it by
Hmm.
doing things when you're not feeling courageous. You generate more of it by
Do it
being
anyway.
right. Exactly
Do it
that.
anyway.
Exactly that.
A,
Um,
a few years ago, when was it? It was a few years ago now, whenever it was, I had a moment in time where I made the decision that I was going to do things that terrified the life out of me on purpose. And basically, I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick things that scare me and then I'm going to run at them full speed.
mhm.
Bang, I'm going to do it. And so I've done various things to do that, but one of them was, I had a fear of heights. So I was like, right, I'm going to
Yeah.
abseil off the tallest building in London. Right,
Yeah.
let's
I
go,
remember
let's do
that
it.
actually. I remember, yeah. Yeah.
You have to, yeah, I think you have to run at your fear. You have to
I
run straight
agree.
at it,
Yeah.
full speed, go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to know because I think there's also like there's two things that I'd love to know about that. One is a caveat that it's okay to also rest and prepare for running at your fear, isn't it? Like we don't
Mhm.
always want to be doing that. I definitely feel sometimes I question myself, like, oh, for God's sake, Mel, when are you going to cut yourself a bit of slack, and rest
Yeah,
on your laurels a wee bit, rather than
yeah.
constantly growing, constantly expanding, constantly creating. But the payback from that is so worth it, isn't it? Because
Mhm.
when you're people like us who are really impact focused and we want to make a meaningful difference, like you get
Mhm.
so much payback from that.
Mhm.
But what I was going to ask is, that method to creating the magic, that becoming process, it's about the day to day, isn't it? It's about the tiny little things that you commit
Mhm.
to day in, day out. It's about those micro choices and decisions.
Mhm.
What does that becoming look like in your day to day? What are some of the practices or rituals, that you do or have done that have really supported you to navigate fear, to be more courageous, to take more risks, to go
Mhm.
from, the comfort of a salary and paid employment to entrepreneurship? I'd love to know what are some of the things that really help you navigate um,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
process.
So it's probably fair to say that I've completely changed my life in lots of ways.
Mm,
From what it was a few years ago, there was a moment in time a few years ago where something very big happened in my life, and I had a moment to choose, and I can talk about that in a moment. But I had a moment to choose how am I going to deal with this,
yeah.
and my choice was around I'm going to deal with it by treating every choice with love and with grace. But because of that, I then started to make choices in the smallest details about doing the right thing against that anchor. So,
Yep.
what am I going to eat today? How am I going to move today?
Yes.
How much water am I going to drink today?
Yes.
How am I going to reflect today? How am I going
Yeah.
to create? How am I going to play?
Yes.
How am I going to rest? And all of those things stack up because at the end of the day, growth for me doesn't come from one massive moment or big surges. I mean, yes, they're part
That can
of
be
it,
part of it,
part
100%,
of it.
right? Like, yeah, that can be, there are definitely jumping off the cliff moments that come along, aren't
Yes.
there?
And
And
then you
big
have to go
celebration
back.
moments where something miraculous, you create it, you land it, like the wins are there too. But yeah, say more because you're
Yeah,
right. It's
it's
about
small.
the day to day. Hmm.
It's all those tiny things. And over time, I realized that the choices that I was making around my fitness, for example, so I have to move every day in one way or another. The type of fitness that I do, I achieve a balance. So I do dynamic weightlifting and I do running, which are very high intensity, but I also do yin yoga and
Mhm.
swimming and walking to balance that
Yeah.
as well. So
And it
making
wasn't always like that,
balance.
right? I
Mm.
remember when I was your exec coach, when you were in the corporate world,
Mhm.
we had a conversation about all the things you're doing to kind of for well-being to like relax are all increasing your adrenaline more.
Yeah, yeah.
You remember? And it was that like, how do you find the yin and the yang?
The
Because
balance,
so much,
constant.
yeah, exactly. And I think so much of us, again, it's that we train ourselves to live from our adrenaline and our cortisol and our like, the fire. We have like, let's
Mhm.
feed the fire, feed the fire, feed the fire, feed the fire. There's only so long you can perform like that
Mhm.
without being
Mhm.
able to sustain it anymore, where you need to bring that balance in. So I think that's really a really beautiful thing to illustrate that you're sharing. Um,
I
and
think
also,
the way we eat, like eat and nutrition
yeah,
as well, that's
yeah,
another one which is, I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's so important,
it is.
eating,
It's your
being
fuel.
so conscious about what
Mhm.
we're putting in our
Yeah.
bodies and how we're resting and everything. So,
Yeah. And you're
mhm.
also really making me, or I think you're really role modeling being more deeply connected with your intuition
Mhm.
and being able to create the space for what you actually need, what your body needs today.
Mhm.
Because this morning when I woke up, I had a bit of a broken night's sleep last night, which occasionally happens for various reasons. I've got a good handle on it now. And when I woke up, I felt tired and I'd had I'd had a dream. I'm in a creative mode right now. We were chatting about it before, weren't we? What that creative process feels
Mhm.
like because I'm
Mhm.
rebirthing an older program. And so I'd had this dream after I fell back asleep because I'd kind of asked for info and guidance. And so in this
Mhm.
dream, loads of stuff came through. So normally my routine is come down, get Maxie ready for school, leave the house at 8 o'clock, walk him to the bus, take off for my morning walk. And I said to Charlie, who happened to be off, I was like, can you do that today? Because I knew I just needed to sit with my creation and be. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's walking, but today I just
Yeah.
needed to be. I needed to just
Mhm.
be. I needed to not get into anything too much. I needed to not go out too
Mhm.
much of myself and my body. I just needed to like allow things to keep surfacing, percolating. And I'll
Mhm.
know when a walk is the right time to do that, or the best way to do that, or a shower is the best way to do that, or actually just sitting and maybe having
Mhm.
my coffee a bit earlier than I would usually is the best way to do that. So I think like being able to, and what you're really making me think about as well is these four pillars that I talk about around the feminine edge, which one is well-being, have
Mhm. Mhm.
fueling your body to full of vitality and positive energy and self-worth, that journaling, that connection with self, like what do I need? How can I feel more confident? How can I take an
Mhm.
action that's going to push me further towards what it is I'm creating? Wisdom, that connection to your inner instinct, your wisdom, your inner voice. And so it's beautiful to hear you talk, like describe and illustrate those things in such a real life way.
Mhm. Something that's just made me smile, Mel, is just when you said about journaling. So my kind of morning ritual, of course, my morning pages ritual has become so important to me now. But I'm laughing because I needed to prop this up, and I've taken the stack of my morning pages jotters to prop up my laptop, and now I've got so many of them, and they're all the same. They're like yellow jotters that you get at school, A4 jotters.
Yeah.
They're in a big
So
stack.
all that wisdom is with us. And that's been one of your practices and rituals, hasn't it? Morning
Yeah.
pages. Um,
Hmm. Which you
so
introduced me to.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And so remind me of the name of the book. I'm having a brain fog moment.
The Artist's Way by
The
Julia
Artist's Way
Cameron.
by Julia Campbell.
Cameron.
Cameron, that's it. Which is such a good way to like get the gunk out of the way and allow your inner voice and creativity to flow, isn't it? If you want to train that part of yourself. My laptop's sitting on mousetrap to give it a bit of height today. The
You
crazy
get.
game reaction contraption. That's what's sitting in front of me right now.
I've not played that for
Real
years.
talk. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure it's missing loads of it. We don't play it either. The box just rattles around. I'm sure many people can relate to that. But let's talk about all these efforts, all these big risks, all this courage and these changes. What are the ripples that you can see and feel from that now? What does your life look like now? You said my life looks so completely different from how it used
Hmm.
to. Give us a before and after, just a snapshot of what it looked and felt like then and what it looks and feels like now. That would, I think, be so powerful for people.
So a few years ago, I was living in London. I was living with my then husband, and I was working all the hours of the day. I was living the London lifestyle. I was exercising because I've always been an active person,
Yeah.
but it was kind of in fits and bursts, and it wasn't necessarily consistent, and it wasn't necessarily balanced.
Balance.
It's kind of
Hmm.
cortisol stimulating. And, I was in a relationship which was in hindsight, that glorious thing, was actually very unfulfilling. It didn't have as much love in it as relationships real where when real love exists,
Mm.
that was absent. I was giving a lot of love, and I was throwing everything at it and being very loyal and so on. But it wasn't necessarily there. So there was this imbalance in
Yeah.
many aspects of my life. So
Mm.
from a work point of view, lots of all of the bits, there was a bit of a imbalance going on. And the effect of that on me, of course, was that I would often feel uh, anxious, or
Mm.
lacking confidence, or what have I done wrong, or blaming myself, or which
Mhm.
then creates a knock-on negative effect.
Yeah. Because you were
Well,
hustling hard as well, right? You were hustling at
absolutely.
work. And I think often, not always, but often that hustling comes from that place of lack, doesn't it? It comes from that place of not enough. Shit, I need to
Mm-hmm.
do more, do more, do more, do more, do more, do more. Because
Yeah, it
then
was,
that, that might make it better. And of course, it never does, or it might
yeah,
temporarily.
it was a very intense and in lots of ways slightly outrageous way of living. And I think now I've done, I mean, God, we laugh about this, right? But I've done the work. I've done all the work. And there's still so much more work to do. I've spent so much time working on how I want my life to be, how I feel in myself, my inner work. I've spent many hours with therapists and coaches and counselors and fitness trainers and all these things. I've spent a lot of time reflecting and building the strength within myself about what I want my life to look like and what I want it to be. And now I feel so it's like I have a different infrastructure. It's like,
Mm.
the fascia, all the bits that hold your muscles and bits together. Now it's almost like everything right down to the marrow in my bones and the fascia in my body has been it's like it's been reconnected. It's got a different level of energy in it. It's in lots of ways I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
And in lots of ways I'm more like myself than I've ever been.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Because what you've really done is you've shed all the parts of you that were never yours to begin with,
true. Yes, indeed.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that becoming isn't about trying to be somebody else. It's
Mm-hmm.
about finally claiming who you always were and why you came here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that really is the embodiment of that, the archetype, the leadership archetype that I describe as the wildly awakened woman. It's that woman who has chosen herself
Mm-hmm.
and has decided to commit to herself and her becoming and following your desires and feeling no shame about that and realizing that they are the signposts to your destiny that was always
Mm-hmm.
yours to begin with. It was always there. You never needed to hustle for it. You never needed to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's work that happens and the right people and guides and supports will just turn up, I think, when you embark upon this path, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Those beautiful relationships and synchronistic moments, which is such
I
a beautiful
think,
thing. But yeah, sorry.
yeah, I just think, yes, everything there's something about, you talk about this a lot in terms of how you ground into who you are and how you channel who you are. Basically, you're just a vessel, really. And there's something about, for me, I do feel more myself than I've ever been, I think. But there's a certain calmness that comes with that and a sort of knowing, if you like. And I was
Mhm.
talking to somebody recently who is a friend, not a very close friend, but within our kind of circle of friends. And we were having this, we'd had been having a deep and meaningful chat, and he said, whenever I see you, I always have these really profound conversations about life, and they're always like really deep and meaningful. And I was like, well, it's interesting. Like, there's lots of interesting stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've got a lot to go after. And he said something that strikes me, Rebecca, is like you know exactly who you are. Like, you don't. There's something about the way you are. You have this calmness to you where you know who you are, and you're not messing about, if you like.
Mm.
Which I thought was, it made me kind of smile, because I was like, well, that's cool.
Yeah. But I think that's because you decided to choose yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? You made that commitment, you made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have felt easy in many ways, but in other ways, it feels like the only one, right? When you get to the point that you
Yes,
described or
absolutely.
that I described, it doesn't always have to get to that level of extremity for everybody.
Mm.
But what I see again archetypally so often it's like relationship breakdown, redundancy, grief, bereavement. These are
Mm-hmm.
activators in
Mm-hmm.
our life that make us start to
Mm-hmm.
begin to question the status quo. And whilst they can be incredibly challenging, often there's beautiful gifts in there for us
Mm-hmm.
if we choose to claim them, if we choose to
Mm-hmm.
take them. So I'd love you to give us a little bit of advice for that woman who feels, or man, whoever's listening, who feels that ache for more, but feels scared to break the rules. What's your piece of advice?
I would say it would be scary not to break the rules. Like,
Mm,
there is no other choice. When you
mm,
get to, if you sit down within yourself and you have this knowing, and a sense and a vision of what you feel that is right and wrong for you in your life, or is the correct direction that feels a pull that you can feel yourself pulled towards. There isn't really a choice. You just said there is often that can only be the choice. And when it comes down to it, the hard kind of edge of yes or no, this way, that way, this way, that way, quite often there is only one choice. And it's actually scarier not to follow that soul calling, that
yeah,
intuition, that,
yeah,
quite often I'll have, it might sound a bit bonkers to some people, but I'll have like, it's almost like a broadcast message that lands in my brain, and it'll just be like a flash of a statement or a set of words or a sentence where it's like I receive a message.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
receive a
I
message
think
into
that's
my
what
brain.
you start to co-create with life a lot more because you're open to it,
Yeah.
because you're not numbing and you're not filled with, but other stuff, because you've created space for that wisdom and insight to land or to surface.
Yeah,
That's how I
absolutely.
describe it.
It's like this burst, it's like this bing, it's like your inbox receiving a mail,
Yeah.
and you get the bing, and your brain goes tick, tick, and it's just this thing comes into your bright brain. And when you've heard that wisdom and when you've felt it, you can't ignore it. You have to
Yeah, it's one
listen
of
to
those
it.
moments. It's like the world shifts in that moment and it can never go back. And
Yes,
you knowing and your
yes.
understanding can never go back. It's like it's a truth you can never unlearn. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I think that's such a beautiful way to describe that awakening process, that becoming process. Because I think as well, like one of the things we've not kind of actively labeled or if you like or mentioned is that you can describe what we've talked about today in a cycle from a psychological perspective around post-traumatic growth. You went through this
Yeah.
really awful, difficult time, which activated a much stronger sense of purpose, a much more willingness to support yourself to evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can also describe it as a spiritual awakening, which
Yeah.
is that your soul, that part of you, your essence, finally breaking through and
Mm-hmm.
finally helping you dismantle all the parts of your life, all the parts of your humanity, if you like, or your humanness that's stopping you from living fully, that's stopping you from living a life that's fully expressed and fully lit up. So I think, it isn't easy, but
Mm-hmm.
oh, is it worth it? Right? And do you want to say
Mhm.
a little now about, some of the things that have happened for you, some of the things that you have created in the last, couple of years or whatever? I mean, there's been some unbelievable moments for you of potency and kind of claiming, hasn't there, of that vision, of that desire to make a difference in the world.
Mhm. Oh, where shall I start? My goodness. I could go all the way back to the big sort of moment of realization quite a few years ago now, which was when I had that quite traumatic time in my life. Um, but in the last couple of years, I would say there have been some moments where I've gone, boom, it's like lightning bolts, and you're like, bang. I mean, obviously, the work that we did together last year, the co-creation that we did around the Awakened Leaders, how to become the leader the world needs right now, that book, that was an incredibly rich time in terms of creativity and channeling my intent.
Expressing your voice, right? Expressing your voice.
Yes.
So you became, you shared your message with the world about love and the importance of love in business and leadership, which we talked about today, obviously, which is just
Mhm.
amazing. And you're birthing something radically groundbreaking in the
Mhm.
form of
Mhm.
your tech
Mhm.
platform. I know it still feels very like,
Ah.
am I ready to share that yet? But is there anything that feels right to share around just anything to do with that kind of process of, claiming your vision, right? You've
Yeah.
really, because I think that is such a good if reflection or embodiment of just the vastness of the
Mhm.
difference that you're here to make, the impact that you're here to make is
Mhm.
way more than what you gave your like than what you anticipated, I think, right? When
Yeah.
you when
Then I
you
gave
stepped
myself
off,
permission to.
when you
Mhm.
jumped off the cliff and left corporate, you
Mhm.
didn't leave corporate to become the leader that you're becoming now, right? That's something that has emerged and evolved as you've given yourself all the support and the life and the lifestyle that has enabled you to be so deeply creative and brave.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
It,
what's
I
next?
mean, there's something that I'm smiling about because it's you and I have been on such a journey together. You know, we know each other very well, and we've worked together now for years and supported each other and loved each other for years now.
Yeah.
And it feels funny because it's almost like, ooh, it's probably no coincidence that you happen to be around when I have like big moments and epiphanies. You know, and I'm thinking about when I sort of birthed the idea, or at least I could visualize actually what it might be just a few months ago, really. It's not that
Yeah.
long ago.
No,
Um,
that was a moment at the retreat, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
like it was wild. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa, where did that
Yeah.
come from?
Because it just
Um,
felt to me like there was something in the room, and you were like, "Oh, there's this thing where it's never going to make anyone." And so when I called you on that, it was that moment, wasn't it, of that was your moment of no going back. That was your moment of
mhm,
claiming your vision, wasn't
mhm,
it? That had been
mhm,
lurking and was kind of popping up here and there, like a little
mhm.
seal popping out of the water. Oh, I'm away again. Oh, I'm here. Oh, I'm away again. That was your moment of claiming and reclamation, I think. And it's incredible what's happened since then, isn't it?
Yeah, it was it was almost like it was something outside of my control. It
Mm.
was like, and it has its own energy. Like
Yeah.
it's got this vibration
An
energy.
an
It's like,
energetic field that
yeah, it's like
you're the
I'm
conduit
just
for that.
I'm just
Yeah.
the messenger. I'm just the
Yeah.
person to like tell
Yeah.
people about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually quite wild. And I was talking to one of my business partners on it the other day, and I was actually saying we have to remind ourselves how far we've come actually in just a few months. Yes, of course, you know, we're only at the very beginning of this journey, but we've actually taken quite a few steps, you know,
Yeah, you've done
um,
amazingly well.
on that. So it's really exciting. It's
Yeah.
unbelievably exciting. And I feel so passionate and clear that it's going to support people in the way that I think, you know, the world is looking for, I guess. So we'll
Wonderful.
see.
Watch this space, everybody. So much more to come on that front. Rebecca, how can people find you? I'll be sharing, links and things like that in the show notes. How can people find you? And is there what's the one final truth you'd love people to carry forward from the conversation?
I do quite a lot of work with young people, younger than me, I should say, in terms of two-way mentoring.
Mhm.
And one of the things I always spend a bit of time talking to them about, and we talk about, is we always know within ourselves what is right and what's the thing that's in alignment with you and what
Mhm.
feels good. Things feel good or they don't feel good.
Mhm.
And all our answers come from feeling into that
Mm.
and recognizing, does this feel good or does it not feel good?
Yeah.
And any of the questions that we need to ask ourselves and that we need to make in our lives will be aided by simply considering how it feels, what does it feel like to me? And that applies as much in a business corporate world as it does to decisions in your personal
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
it's it's the most important piece about being true to yourself and doing the best you can do for yourself and therefore everybody around you,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create
I love that.
positive effect.
I love
So
that you're, and I love that you are mentoring people who are earlier in the journey in your profession that you're so deeply passionate about, and really weaving the love that you embody and the values that you want to see more of through the world of work, through what you do. And I'm just so grateful for our friendship and connection and work together, and also just so excited for people to see what comes next. And the visionary that you are, to be able to play a small part in helping you to kind of bring all that to life is just, yeah, such a joy, such a beautiful embodiment of the wildly awakened woman. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you
thank
so
you so much, Mel. Thank you. Absolute joy.
much. Thank you.